It's your fault. You can't have children. Every time we meet, my mother-in-law pressures me to hurry up and give her grandchildren. And my useless husband always takes her side. Despite being in an isolated environment, I never gave up and kept trying to change the situation. And eventually, our family discussion turned into a dramatic showdown. She told me to leave because I couldn't have children. I left with a smile, but the pressure of being constantly asked about grandchildren was stressful. I'm living proof of that, so please listen to me seriously. Let's start with my family situation. I'm in my late 20s and work part-time. I married my husband 5 years ago, and we don't have any children. By the way, my husband is an ordinary office worker. We don't have a bad relationship, but for the past year, he's been getting on my nerves more often. One of the reasons is my mother-in-law. She's very competitive, has clear likes and dislikes. She likes daughters-in-law who have children and dislikes those who don't. Since I'm in the latter category, she completely dislikes me. It wouldn't be so bad if it was just dislike. But she makes nasty comments all the time, which is tough. For example, here's a recent one. My mother-in-law suddenly called me and yelled that her husband's sister, Kristen, had beaten me to having the first grandchild. Kristen lives near her and brags about her daughter-in-law every time they meet. That must have really bothered her. After complaining about Kristen, she blamed me, saying, "I wouldn't be so miserable if you had children already. You're a failure as a daughter-in-law," and hung up after venting her frustration. My mother-in-law is very competitive and probably sees Kristen as a rival, but that's not my problem. I'm just tired of her taking out her stress on me. And that being said, her words do hurt. I want children, and I do feel inferior whenever my friends have kids. She sees me as nothing more than a baby-making machine and doesn't care about my feelings at all. She thinks pressuring me will somehow make a grandchild appear sooner. That is just a part of her daily harassment. Talking about her makes me feel nauseous. I'm considering divorce just to cut ties with her. I envy people who can get along with her mother-in-law. We've been married for 5 years, but her obsession with grandchildren started about a year ago. At first, she was nice and welcomed me as a daughter-in-law. It's hard to believe now, but we used to go shopping and have tea together. She even gave me her old designer bags, and I was thrilled. She used to say she was happy to have a daughter now, as she only had my husband. When we first met, she was a smiling, kind mother, which reassured me about marrying my husband. Of course, she hinted that she wanted grandchildren, but it wasn't unpleasant. She would say things like, "I wonder when the stork will come with your baby. I can't wait to see your children. They will be adorable." But gradually, she started asking about grandchildren every time we met. Then, she began comparing me to other daughters-in-law who had kids, asking why I couldn't have children. I wanted to know that too. Her words started to stress me out. Recently, she's gone as far as saying I'm a failure as a wife because I can't have children, and implying that I might be infertile. Her transformation is frightening. Did something happen to change her, or is this her true nature? She always had a tendency to gossip and criticize neighbors, so maybe she was just pretending to be a good mother-in-law. I think last New Year's gathering with relatives triggered her change. When she heard that a couple who married after us had a baby and saw others bragging about their grandchildren, she felt left out. It must have shattered her pride, and she stopped pretending to be nice and started venting her true feelings. She justifies her bullying by blaming me for not having children. Whatever I say, she denies and argues back. I'm still struggling with how to deal with her. It's unlikely I can solve this alone. I've been talking to my husband since her harassment began. I once asked, "Can you tell your mother to stop pressuring me about children? It stresses me out and affects my health." He said,
"Mom's just being hysterical. Don't take it seriously. We'll have kids someday. Don't stress over it."
It's absurd. I don't want to worry, but she says things that make it impossible. My husband doesn't understand at all. It's stressful dealing with both her and my clueless husband. If I stand up to her, she'll just retaliate. I wish my husband would confront her, but he can't. He was pampered and feels indebted to her. He once declared,
"I'm your husband, but also her son, so I want to stay neutral."
He's useless. Saying he's neutral means he's on her side. I think he's just avoiding conflict. That's why I'm often angry with him. My love for him is wearing thin. She blames me entirely for not having children, but I think my husband is partly to blame. He's always busy and never makes time for us. I often invited him on trips, but he usually said,
"I want to relax on my days off."
I gave up after being turned down so many times. No wonder we can't have kids. He says he wants children, but his actions don't match his words. As I've said, I've been considering the possibility of divorce. However, I've been holding off, waiting for the best timing. I'm not sure if he will be on my side, but I think my father-in-law is truly neutral. I hadn't seen him for 2 years and we hadn't been in contact much, but he has never belittled or looked down on me. When I think about it, my mother-in-law never bullies me in front of him. Maybe my mother-in-law pretends to be nice in front of him? My husband knows about this situation, but still sides with his mother, while my father-in-law might not even know about the bullying. If that's the case, maybe I should have consulted with him. If my father-in-law is truly reasonable, he would definitely be on my side after hearing the whole story. My mother-in-law will probably continue her bullying, so I think I'll gather evidence with a recorder for now. Evidence of her human rights violations might help in my divorce. I'll make sure to record our conversations from now on. Before getting a divorce, I might as well confront her thoroughly. The day came when I confronted her. It turned into a real showdown. My mother-in-law's calls continued almost daily. Even if I answered, it was always the same thing. She kept repeating, "Someone from so-and-so had a baby. When are you having one?" I decided to reduce the pointless stress by ignoring her calls for about 3 days. During that time, she called nearly 20 times. I was shocked by her persistence. Then, on the 4th day of ignoring her, she showed up at our house. "Why aren't you answering the phone? What are you thinking?" I was busy with things to do. "You can't be that busy. Is it strange for someone who doesn't have kids or isn't a stay-at-home mom to be busy?" So you're saying I have free time too. Is that why you came all the way here today? What do you need? "My friends have grandchildren. They look down on me because you don't have kids." I've heard that before, so you don't need to repeat it. Please leave. She looked frustrated that I brushed her off so smoothly, and then started her usual human rights violations. "You're an inferior woman who can't have kids. How dare you talk back to me? I was just trying to share information about kids with you because you don't have any mom friends. How could you disrespect my kindness?" She kept making self-centered comments, blaming me for not having kids. Normally I would have been hurt, but this time was different. I had recorded all her abusive comments, so I felt more at ease knowing I had evidence for a favorable divorce. After that, I couldn't just let her keep talking, so I responded. "It's a problem between my husband and me that we can't have kids. Why am I the only one being blamed? My husband is also responsible because he doesn't make time for us due to work. She got furious. It's not my son's fault. It's common sense that the woman is to blame. Then it got even more chaotic. She said if I wanted her to forgive me for insulting her son, I should have a child by next year, and if not, I should leave and pay $30,000 in support. Why did money suddenly come up? Her logic was that I married her son, hiding the fact that I couldn't have children. She would never see grandchildren, she felt deceived, and she wanted compensation. Honestly, I don't understand her reasoning. In the end, she made her outrageous proposal and left in anger. That night, my husband suddenly got angry at me. Apparently, my mother-in-law exaggerated and told him, Your wife said it's your fault we can't have kids. He got furious.
Why is it my fault? It's your fault we can't have kids. Since it's your fault, you should at least do something nice for my mother and give her $1,000 a month.
He was saying the same nonsensical things as my mother-in-law, and I was completely fed up. Watching him get angry, I realized it was the perfect time for a divorce. By the way, I also recorded this conversation with my husband, thinking it might be useful during the divorce. Like mother, like son. He's hopeless. After my husband calmed down, I suggested we have a proper discussion with all four of us. This family meeting turned into an unexpected showdown. The meeting was scheduled a week later at our apartment. The first to arrive was my mother-in-law. As soon as she sat down, she started repeating what she had previously told me. There's nothing to discuss. My opinion remains the same. You don't have kids, you defy your mother-in-law, and you aren't fulfilling your duties as a wife. You hid the fact that you couldn't have children when you married my son, so you deceived us. Therefore, you need to take responsibility by either paying money or having a child. I hoped she would reflect on her words calmly, but she showed no signs of that. It became clear how self-centered she is. Even though my husband hadn't arrived yet, she kept talking as if the discussion was over. Moreover, she brought up old issues like a brand name bag she gave me, accusing me of taking advantage of her generosity. She was making things up. My husband believed everything she said, showing no neutrality.
Is it true? Were you doing such things behind my back? No wonder my mother dislikes you.
He was being manipulated by her. According to my mother-in-law, she had been spreading these stories around the neighborhood, and now everyone thought I was the worst daughter-in-law. Hearing her accusations, I got angry. If you feel like you were robbed, I'll return it immediately. You said you were giving me the bag, so I accepted it. I have no attachment to an old bag. And what do you mean I'm not fulfilling my duties as a wife? From my perspective, you're not fulfilling your duties as a mother-in-law by supporting me. Have you noticed that all you give me is stress? I have no intention of giving you any money. Unable to interject due to my tirade of angry words, my mother-in-law eventually retorted after a brief pause. If anyone's under stress, it's me. Because you haven't had a child, people around me think I'm a fool. It's compensation for my loneliness, so you should be the one to pay it. My husband then chimed in, saying,
Mom might have gone too far, but as the daughter-in-law, you should be the one to compromise. This issue can be resolved with money. Just pay $1,000 a month. I'm covering the living expenses with my income, so it won't affect our household budget if you send money to my mother.
He was still as clueless as ever. Seeing her son take her side, my mother-in-law got cocky and said arrogantly, You should leave. I responded with a smile. Got it. I'll leave. I stood up, went upstairs, and came down with a large backpack. What do you mean by leave? What's that luggage, Tina? My mother-in-law looked even more shocked when she realized I wasn't bluffing. I explained that I had intended to leave after this conversation and declared that I would be getting a divorce. I slammed the divorce papers on the table, saying, I'm going to tell the neighbors I'm divorcing because of the horrible treatment from my mother-in-law and husband. My useless husband turned pale, and my mother-in-law, who cares about appearances, started to panic. No one will believe you. I played the recordings I had. Unfortunately for her, they served as solid evidence. She desperately tried to stop me from leaving. "I didn't mean it. Telling you to leave was a lie. I was just testing if you would rebel," she said, changing her attitude. But it was too late. Just then, my father-in-law arrived. "I thought you said you'd be 30 minutes late," my mother-in-law said, flustered. We had actually planned for him to arrive late. I had gathered evidence of my mother-in-law's harassment and bravely consulted my father-in-law, who, having concerns about her behavior, willingly cooperated. My confidence in confronting my mother-in-law came from knowing my father-in-law was on my side. With her verbal abuse fully exposed, my mother-in-law shrank in embarrassment. Her life was supported by my father-in-law's money, creating a sort of master-servant relationship. Even in such a situation, she tried to excuse herself, saying, "It wasn't intentional. Tina's behavior drove me to it." My father-in-law sternly interrupted.
"I'm divorcing you."
He handed her some papers. This surprised both my husband and me. The documents showed photos and an investigation report of my mother-in-law frequenting a casino. Hearing her demand money from me, my father-in-law, suspecting her lavish spending habits, had hired a detective agency to investigate. My mother-in-law was at a loss for words. She, who always looked down on me, now had a face like a withered cucumber. I laughed inwardly. That's when I realized why my mother-in-law had so many branded bags. With her high pride, she must have wanted to show off to her friends. She begged, "I'll stop going to the casino, so please forgive me." But there were other reasons for the divorce. My father-in-law mentioned his sister. Apparently, out of jealousy over her grandchildren, my mother-in-law has spread false rumors about Kristen in the neighborhood, making her a target of disdain. Kristen was now reclusive. Considering her slander against his sister, my father-in-law decided to divorce. After finishing the talk with my mother-in-law, he handed me an envelope saying,
"Thanks to you, I discovered her bad habits. Thank you."
To make my divorce more favorable, I had asked him to investigate if my husband and mother-in-law had any secrets. The result was damning. My husband had been secretly cheating. The photos showed him arm in arm and kissing another woman. Suspecting something was up, I had now had proof. Following my father-in-law's example, I thrust the papers at my husband, saying, "Our divorce is final. I'll also be taking alimony." He signed the divorce papers on the spot. He turned red and trembled when he saw the photos, though I'm not sure if it was from anger or fear. I thought his pathetic state was amusing, but didn't hold back, playing my final card, my medical report. It stated I wasn't infertile. "Cynthia, it turns out I'm not the reason there are no grandchildren. Do you understand what this means? Even if my husband remarries, he probably won't have kids." I spat, leaving with my father-in-law. While it's unknown if my husband is infertile without testing, the impact of my statement was huge. Though my mother-in-law never apologized, my father-in-law's sincere words were enough to clear my mind.
"I'm sorry you had to suffer from such a foolish son and mother-in-law. I hope you find happiness from now on."
I plan to receive a hefty alimony from my husband, so I'm content on that front too. According to my father-in-law, my mother-in-law, now deep in debt, is even more engrossed in host clubs to soothe her wounded pride. Moreover, he sued her for defamation over his sister Kristen's case. Without a job, repaying these debts must be tough for her. My ex-husband has started a side job to pay my alimony and is barely getting by. I told my neighbors the truth when they asked about the divorce. The rumors spread like wildfire, and my mother-in-law and ex-husband are now social outcasts.